For attending. Thank you as well if you're watching somewhere in the precinct on television. I'm Peter Sherman, MPP for Thornhill. I was the first person to introduce in any legislature or any public body a motion to condemn the use of the term Israeli Apartheid Week. Israeli Apartheid Week, for those who don't know, began in Ontario about 6 years ago, 2005, and it gained national and international notoriety in that period of time. Very interesting that when we put that motion before the legislature, that resolution before the legislature last year, it also gained international notoriety. We had articles printed in Israel. We had a motion on the floor of the House of Commons in Ottawa, one on the floor of the Manitoba legislature, and we had press from as far away as United Kingdom, and that's before you get into the issue of how many thousands of emails and letters came into my office. Motions in a legislature like the Ontario Assembly, however, only carry moral suasion with them. There are no teeth that can be applied in cases like this. My private member's bill, which I will table in the legislature this afternoon, will give teeth to my premise that anyone who knowingly allows for hate-inciting activities in a venue or at an event using public money is breaking the law. I would cite as a case in point Pride Toronto, which received a $100,000 increase in provincial funding this year, for total provincial funding of $400,000 emanating from the Ontario Ministry of Tourism. Last year, at the 11th hour, Pride Toronto's board, after disallowing the participation of a group called Queers Against Israeli Apartheid in the parade, to preserve funding from the City of Toronto, reversed itself after barring them initially. The City of Toronto, as I understand it this year, likely will not be granting any funding to Pride Toronto. The point of my private member's bill, however, is to enable the government to recover money that has been used to support the promotion of hatred. And I'd like to remind people that freedom of speech in Canada is quite different from the freedom of speech that we take for granted as existing in terms of what the United States of America has. We watch television and we think freedom of speech is absolute. It is not absolute in Canada. It is controlled under the Criminal Code, sections 318, 319, and 320. So whereas you can go to Central Park in New York and preach hate against any group you want with impunity, here in Canada, if you speak hate, then you have to pay. And I don't want to see any money coming from public coffers spent on hate. So my bill provides for significant fines. It allows for the recovery of money, even if it has to go after private citizens who serve on boards, for example, that control these events. And it provides for significant convictions. My private member's bill puts government in a position of control over how public money is spent, and it ensures it is spent in the best interests of taxpayers. Any person and or organization which violates this act is held to the same legal standard as a person and or organization taking money under false pretenses. What I'm saying is that this is tantamount to fraud. As elected representatives, we here have an obligation to Ontario families to ensure that their hard-earned tax dollars are spent wisely and not to support the promotion of hatred. Public bodies that knowingly allow for public money to be used under false pretenses should and will face fines and possibly other charges as prescribed by this act that could include organizations, agencies, boards that receive public funding, and it could include educational institutions. That's what I have to say about my bill. If there are questions, happy to take them.
Have you had any support from other party on this, like the NDP, for example?
I have not solicited support from other parties on this at this point. The question will be now when we are going to debate this. At this point, we're probably weeks away from the end of the 39th Parliament in Ontario, so I have to look for some debating time before I even get into whether or not I've got support from other parties.
Je peux vous poser une question sur le budget, M. Sherman?
Sur le budget, après, si vous voulez.
Do you have any other questions on
Any other questions on this? Rachel? Anything? Thank you very much. Have a great day. Well, we actually mentioned that before you came in. It would impact if this were in force and somebody brought charges that ultimately wound up in a court of law, and there was a conviction under the Criminal Code of Canada, 318, 319, 320, which are sections of the Criminal Code that pertain to hate. That would allow for the full recouping of these monies from the Pride Parade, and it would impose significant fines on those who administer those funds at the Pride Parade. And this would apply not just to Pride, but to any other event or any other venue that accepted public money and then allowed for the preaching of hate in their midst. So there'd be a great effect.
Are there other events, other than, say, gay pride or anti-Israel hate messaging, that you can think of that it would also pertain to?
Well, I think you have to remember that Canada doesn't have what you believe is free speech. People think we have free speech, unfettered free speech. We don't. We have free speech to the extent that we can all think whatever we want. We can't say whatever we want. If there's hatred in your mind, it better not come out of your mouth in a public place, because you then may be in breach of the hate laws, and the hate laws are governed by the Criminal Code, as I've mentioned. That being the case, there is a dictum on anybody who is hosting a public event that they keep that public event or that public venue, let's say university campuses, for example, free from hate speak. If they don't, my approach under this private members bill would be to be able to take action to recoup public money, as well as to impose fines and penalties on the people who allowed that to go on. So the short answer to your question about whether or not it goes beyond the Pride Parade is it goes anywhere where this happens. Anything else?
What sort of support do you think you have for this?
Say again?
What sort of support do you think there is for this?
At this point, I have not gone to other parties to solicit support, as I did with the resolution of last year. So I can't tell you what the appetite will be for it, but I think that there's some legitimacy, because if you take a look at the resolution and the fact that it passed unanimously, because I think that universally in this legislature, people of all stripes believe that Israeli Apartheid Week is simply code for we don't want Israel to exist. And I'm pretty sure that you could take a look at the debate and draw that conclusion yourself, that I would think that there would be some support for this bill. Anything else? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.